The recruits stood in front of a large multi-story complex in the centre of the simulated town of Morai. Adam, along with the two noble recruits, had been pulled to the front of the just over 24 candidates that remained. Head instructor Zenaya stood before them, pacing as she delivered a briefing. Over the next 3 days and 3 nights, you have a solitary mission, recruits, the woman projected. This hospital is currently in the process of being evacuated in this scenario, and your job is to defend it from the rebel onslaught. Because of the local civilian terrain, Command has banned the use of orbital strikes, and the rebels hit this town before a proper defense effort could be organized. She paused, gesturing to the unit. Therefore, 3 albeit larger than normal pods of death heads were tasked with the impossible, defending this hospital from an endless wave of rebels until evac can be completed. We have brought in electronic simulated explosives for the defense, inside the crates in the atrium as well. The 3 direct recruits will be in charge of selecting and commanding their pods. The rest of the recruits will be expected to follow their orders. The large woman paused to eye the armed and armor-clad soldiers that stood in formation before her. Satisfied that she had made her point, she nodded and looked at Adam. Recruit Adam, the fairer sex goes first, she said with a teasing tone. Immediately, Adam pointed at Cell, not wanting her to be stuck with the nobles. He shuddered at the thoughts of what accidents might befall her otherwise. The nobles took their recruits in turn, returning the choice back to Adam, who took a page from his commanding officer's book. He pointed at the sole werewolf woman in the company, whose ears perked up and sleek tail began to gently swish as she walked to him. He hoped this meant she was happy, as the large woman shared characteristics of both feline and canine in equal measure. When the time came for him to choose his next podmates, he chose a mountain of a Shilvanti woman, her face marred by scars. She had a decidedly combat mother energy around the bay over the past weeks, and would consistently bother the other recruits, ensuring that they ate, slept, and kept themselves in a healthy mental state through virtue of constant nagging. Of course, by being one of the tallest in the company, standing just shy of 8 feet, her frame practically dared anyone to challenge her caring pestering. When the time to pick his next came, he waved a dismissive hand. Instructors, this is the team I want. I'm going to cause trouble around the town and don't need anything larger. I've fought plenty of combat with small teams just like this. Are you sure, recruit? Asked Seth, furrowing her brow. 100%, instructor. I'll just take a nice fat load of the simulated explosives with me and soften up the enemy before they can touch my noble counterparts, Adam said with a wicked grin. The instructors nodded, and the nobles, seeming somewhat confused at Adam's plan to function independently, continued to select. Adam took his pod off to the side, however, and wrote down his plan. Okay, so here's my goal, ladies, he started, gesturing at the map on his omnipad, holding it out in the center of his small unit. It looks like this city has a large sewer system underneath it. We're going to show these assholes why it's a bad idea to leave it unsecured. We're going to move from... He got out before he was interrupted by the werewolf. We're going to be moving through the tunnels, Alpha? She asked pensively, shifting in the balls of her digit-grey feet. Alpha? And yeah, that's the plan. We're going to play Tunnel Rat today, ladies. Adam shot a wicked grin at his team, returned only by Cell, but then again that was the norm for her. The large Shilvanti woman took this opportunity to chime in. Adam, I know you and your lover here are both fine with caves, but us Shilvanti and Rakiri, she paused to gesture at herself and the Rakiri in question, don't do so well in confined spaces. I thought we were here to be death sets, asked Adam with a malicious grin, ignoring her insinuation. First time I met my pod was when I pulled Ferry out of a firefight to the cave I was living in for a couple of days. I know you can do it. The Rakiri woman nodded at this statement of faith in his team, straightening out to her full height. With everyone on the same page, the team moved inside the atrium of the building, and began to load the simulated bricks of explosives into small backpacks set nearby. The Rakiri was the only one without an explosive-laden pack, hers currently occupied by a rectangular thermoregulator, as she called it. Once the pod was loaded, they began to walk outside, only for the 2 noble recruits to waltz into the doorway. Adam, we need to talk and make a plan together, said the larger of the pair, maliciously looking at the man. If our talk goes anything like last time, I think we'll all have a bad day, said Adam, as the Rakiri let out a soft growl, while his Shilvanti companion cracked her knuckles. Oh, that was nothing more than a misunderstanding, said the large noble dismissively, waving a hand before continuing. We need to ensure our defense is well coordinated, and that you're on hand to pull back to us when needed. Anything you have to say to me, you can say to my team, said Adam, gesturing to his pod. The pair snorted derisively but nodded, beckoning him to follow them. Shortly after, they were in a room in the basement of the hospital. A large map projected from a device one of the nobles had pulled out. Their plan was simple and uninspired. In Adam's own summary, it boiled down to just shoot anything that gets close, along with trying to convince him to remain within 200 meters of the hospital. He was not going to do that, and made that clear to his fellow leaders. As much as he despised them, they were still imperative to the success of the mission, and by extension, his chances of becoming a commando and returning to his unit. Finishing with women, he noted a sewer drain cap in the room. If he had to return to the hospital quickly, it would make for an excellent way to do so. That being said, it was also a massive weakness, but the nobles didn't seem to notice it, so he didn't bring it up. The militia were Shulfanti after all, and would probably not be doing any confined space operations, however much he wanted to draw them into the Undercity and hit them from the shadows. The team left the hospital, sallying forth into the city, moving to a main road that led directly through the complex of buildings to the hospital. In the process of setting up explosives, covering them with debris to give this belongs here appearance, the team chatted quietly over their comms. Adam learned that the Warutteri woman was named Okro Carter, but just went by Crow among friends. She was very insistent that Adam call her by a nickname for some reason. She had served for the past 3 Shulfanti years with a unit denoted the Woodland Scouts, and after she described their mission goal, Adam equated them to the Shulfanti equivalent of a long-range reconnaissance patrol. The other member of their team, the La Shulfanti, was named Torana Kilu, and had apparently served 5 Shulfanti years in the militia, earning the Shulfanti equivalent of a Sergeant First Class, which loosely translated into English in Adam's head as Over-Sergeant. Satisfied with their work, the team climbed and settled onto the 3rd floor of a nearby building to watch their ambush point.
So anyways, there I was, no shit, tis deep in the private's guts, trying to grab hold of the abdominal aorta when suddenly...
Sel got in, before she was interrupted by Adam, who was currently on watch at the window. "Our friends are here. Quiet down, and get ready to move," Adam said, pulling the detonator he had tied electronically to the place explosives. He watched as the convoy of alien transport trucks drove slowly down the roadway, waiting until the lead vehicle reached its reference point. The reference point in question being a large, overturned trash receptacle. The plan was a simple ambush, wherein Adam would detonate the charges, hopefully killing the majority of the militia soldiers and disabling their vehicles. After that, he would provide covering fire on the remaining militia women, allowing for his team to bound to a sewer entrance less than 200 yards away, followed closely by him over the rooftops with his enhanced mobility. He gestured for the team to head downstairs, and get ready to break out the front of the building to get to their objective. The window he was at sat next to the stairwell door, which he would take to the roof after covering their initial escape. The seconds stretched on as the convoy slowly travelled down the road, making it to the overturned trash can several minutes later. Adam pressed the detonator 3 times in rapid succession, an old habit from the finicky clackers he had used in the army. Several loud pops sounded along the road, and all but one of the vehicles ground to a halt. He could hear the audible complaints and confusion from the militia women below, the few that the system had deemed alive, stepping out of the trucks, looking around in annoyance. Adam waited several seconds, flipped the safety, and began to fire. The first woman quickly had 2 rounds put into her chest, followed by one that impacted the top of her skull, locking her armor instantly. She fell forward mid-stride. Adam loved this feature of being able to make his enemy faceplant in comedic ways, and was sure he'd never get tired of it. Continuing to 2 militia fighters who had taken cover behind the engine block of one of the vehicles, he began to put shot after shot over their heads and onto the engine of the vehicle, harmlessly chipping small circles of paint off the now disabled truck. "Pod, move out," he called over the radio, continuing his blistering barrage of fire to the small contingent of remaining soldiers. He heard the door 3 stories beneath him slam open, followed by his team pushing out into the street. They would have to cross to the other side, push down an alley, and maneuver 1 roadway over before he could fall back to the roof and jump the gap. The distance was strained what his suit was capable of, but he had confidence that he could make it. He returned to firing, passing an occasional glance to his team as they bounded across the street, each providing fire for the rest as soon as they reached hard cover. When Sel, the last in line, made it to the mouth of the alley, she turned and shot him a thumbs-up gesture, something that she had picked up from him eagerly. He laid fire for a few more seconds, the now organised militiawomen regaining their bearings post-ambush. The return fire crackled around at him, one shot even glancing harmlessly off his deltoid plate. He decided this was his cue and retreated from his position in the window, dropping a power cell from his rifle and replacing it with a fresh one. He moved up the stairs and kicked open the roof access door. He stood several paces back from the 2-foot-high parapet, flicked on his jump kit, and spun his rifle in its sling to his back. He sprinted for the wall, jumping from the parapet itself and sailed through the air towards the opposing building, only to miss the rooftop by scant feet. He landed against his chest plate, grabbing hold of the small parapet as he slid down. Small divots appeared in the building around him as he struggled to pull his armored frame up. He felt more than heard when a round impacted his leg plate, inducing a slight jiggle in his thigh as it absorbed the shot. In short order, he found purchase in his boots and pulled himself over the top. Rolling over the side, he caught his breath as ionized air continued to crackle past the parapet from below. Too damn close, he thought, beginning to low crawl across the roof for several feet before rising to a crouch. He quickly shuffled across the roof he now inhabited to a location he was confident he couldn't be hid from, and sprinted to the jump point to the next roof, significantly closer than the last. He fell one story, the impact being absorbed by the system in his legs. Sprinting across the two-story building, he hopped 2 stories up to the next, continuing to the export point agreed upon by his team. Team, this is Adam. I've crossed the MSR and I'm en route to your position. Everyone right down there?
All good down here, Adam, cracked Sal's voice over their shared channel. Crow got clipped in the leg, but I plugged it. Letting the system know I administered aid. Good as moss now.
Solid copy. ETA 1 Mike until I arrive.
Who's Mike?
Asked a confused sounding Sal. Abbreviation for minutes in my old job. Don't worry about it, he replied, mentally facepalming. He quickly made it to the sewer entrance, a large manhole cover just off from a sidewalk on a small deserted street. His team stood around it, clearly nervous, save for Sal, who looked happy to be caving again, as she stated. All right, let's drop in, said Adam, after removing the cover. It weighed a couple £100, but slid aside easily once he and Tirana both put their backs into it. What are the chances I could convince you to fight out of the surface, Alpha? Asked Warutteri, nervously turning her helmeted head back and forth from Adam to the dark hole. Slim to none, let's go, said Adam, jumping into the hole, quickly followed by Sal. After a few seconds of stalling, Adam watched the 2 larger members of their unit drop down into the 10-foot-high tunnel, Tirana briefly standing on the ladder to pull the manhole cover shut. Adam flipped his night vision on, the infrared illuminators on his helmet activating instantly, and the presence of next to no light in the sewers. He dropped the short fall into the ankle-high water, followed by his team, and pushed to their next objective, a large building that he suspected the militia would use as a staging area for the hospital assault, due to its proximity and large open courtyard. Adam, I just realized I hate you, teased Tirana, being the last to drop into the water, eliciting a small chuckle from the team. And that's why you guys can't take Afghanistan, thought Adam, happily swishing his feet through the water.